أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. Further to my lecture as given by me last Saturday, I started giving a course of short lectures on the origin and growth or development of 12 Imam Shi'ism. The reason why I use 12 Imam Shi'ism or as Shi'atul Ithna Ashariya, in order for it not to be confused with the other Shi'i subdivisions within Islam, which occurred or appeared after the demise of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As we know, 12 Imam Shi'ism is one of the two major sects within Islam, together with Sunnism. Although we are not against the unity of all the Muslims on earth, at the same time it should not be forgotten that it would be better if there could be a lot of fruitful and meaningful dialogues or conversations between the two sects, so that each of them can be familiar with the beliefs or ideas of the other one based on the arguments for or against. But at the same time, each of the two parties should be fair enough in order to reach the truth. We should all be in search of the truth. And the truth, of course, if we be fair enough, was embodied by Imam Ali. Imam Ali himself really and truly was an embodiment of the truth, as the Holy Prophet himself sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Aliyun ma'al haq wal haqqu ma'al. Those who are not familiar with Imam Ali had better consult the Naql Balagha, and we humbly advise them to read about Imam Ali. For example, Ali Sawt al-Adalat al-Insaniya, Ali the Voice of Justice, by George O'Dock from Lebanon, which is really a very nice book. Anyway, today I would like to discuss or deal with one of the imaginary hypotheses or assumptions regarding the origin of Shi'ism. And it is the event of As-Saghifa. Of course, those who are present here had know better that the tragedy of Saghifa, in one sense, was one of the most tragic events which occurred in the history of Islam, after which, or as a result of its aftermath, the Muslims were split up into two divisions or groups. And its aftermath and its tragic consequences on what ensued after this event has continued up to now. And in one sense, all the Muslims are now suffering from the consequences which resulted from that event. Of course, it might be too fast to say this, but let me say it from the very beginning, that the event of As-Saghifa was the worst coup d'etat in the history of Islam. And we, as Muslims, should probe into this event, should delve into this event in order to know about the true nature of the event of As-Saghifa. And what was this tragic event after which all the Muslims, especially the Sunni Muslims and even the Shi'i Muslims, are suffering from the events, from the consequences or results, bitter consequences of this event. Before I speak about the tragedy of As-Saghifa, as I said in the early part of my previous lecture, that the meaning of the term Shia can be discussed both literally and technically. As I said, there are some verses in the Quran in which the term Shia has been used, and I defined, some of the literal meanings of the term Shia in the Quran, and then with regard to its technical meaning, I quoted some of the ahadith or traditions as narrated from the Holy Prophet, especially the one which was narrated from Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari, where Ibn Asakir narrates from Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari, كنا عند النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وأقبل علي عليه السلام, whereupon the Prophet said, إن هذا وشيعته هم الفائزون يوم القيامة. It was then, according to As-Suyuti fi Ad-Durrul Manthur, who said that this ayah was revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات أولئك هم الفائزون يوم القيامة. Then whenever Imam Ali came, the Sahaba, the major outstanding companion, used to say, جاء خير البرية, the best of men has come. إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا أولئك هم خير البرية. خير البرية, the best of men, the best of human beings. So we see that Shi'ism was contemporary with the lifetime of the Prophet, and it was the Prophet himself who planted the seed of Shi'ism in Islam, or metaphorically speaking, on the land of Islam. So, with regard to some who hold the view that it was after the tragedy of As-Saghifa that Shi'ism rose or originated, this assumption cannot be acceptable, because there are so many ahadith preceding this bitter and tragic event, as narrated from the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that Shi'ism predated or preceded this event called the event of As-Saghifa. Before going into any further details, first of all, in short or in brief, we should know what is the event of As-Saghifa. What is the meaning of As-Saghifa? You might know better than me, of course. As-Saghifa means covered porch. It was a shed, or it was a place where, for example, some of the Arab tribes got or gathered together there, for example, in order to plan or engineer a plot or something like that. In fact, it was there that the Arabs held a secret or private meeting. Now, the event of Saghifa definitely is worth analyzing, is worth probing. At-Tabari says, اجتمع الأنصار. You know that after the demise of the Holy Prophet, Imam Ali, together with some of his companions, were busy preparing the Prophet for burial. And Imam Ali knew it more important, deemed more important to prepare the Holy Prophet, the body of the Holy Prophet, for burial. Upon the demise of the Holy Prophet, Al-Ansar, the helpers, some of the Ansar, or the helpers, accompanied by Sa'd ibn Ubadah, gathered at Saghifa in order to nominate one of the members of the Al-Ansar as the successor to the Holy Prophet. Of course, the nominee in this case, or the candidate in this case, was Sa'd ibn Ubadah, who was ill then and who was wrapped in a blanket or quilt and who could not speak very loudly. After that, according to some narrations, Abu Bakr was not present there. Umar sent word to him and invited him to join him and go to As-Saghifa. Or Abu Bakr plus Umar, and on the way they came across Abu Ubaidah al-Jarrah. So all the three joined together and joined Al-Ansar. قال التبري اجتمع الأنصار في صغيفة بني صاعدة ليبايعوا سعد بن عبادة فبلغ ذلك أبا بكر فأتاهم ومعه عمر وأبو عبيدة بن جراح فقال ما هذا فقال منا أمير ومنكم أمير. Then Al-Ansar, they said منا أمير ومنكم أمير. One Amir, one commander, one ruler from us, and one from you. فقالوا منا الأمراء ومنكم الوزراء. But Abu Bakr said, from us al-umara, the rulers, and from you the ministers, or something like that. إلى أن قال, until, in short, Umar paid allegiance to Abu Bakr. And following the allegiance of Umar, the rest or the others paid allegiance to Abu Bakr. But in this case, some of the Al-Ansar said to some others, we will not pay allegiance to anybody except Ali. It was then some of the companions of Imam Ali, like Az-Zubayr and At-Talha, all gathered in the house of Imam Ali alayhi salam in protest to what happened at the Saghifa, because they did not want to pay allegiance to Abu Bakr. So Umar, in this case, went to the house of Imam Ali. فقال والله لأحرقن والله I will burn the house. I will burn the house. Or you should come out, you should leave the house in order to pay allegiance to Abu Bakr. Then Zubayr came out with his sword or sayf. But he tripped, فَأَثَرَ, and then the sword fell out of his hand. Then some jumped upon him in order to take his sword. Again, Zubayr took his sword and pulled it off. And he said, I will not sheathe my sword until hatta yubaya'u Ali, until yubaya'u Ali. So everybody pays allegiance to Ali. And then Abu Bakr and Umar heard about this. They said, take the sword of Zubayr. Ya'qubi says, Malu ma'ali, those who tended towards Ali were among them Al-Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib, Wal-Fazl ibn al-Abbas, Wal-Zubayr ibn al-Awam, the son of Al-As, Khalid ibn Sa'id, Miqdad, the son of Amr, Salman al-Farsi, Abu Zar al-Ghifari, Ammar ibn Yasir, و براء ibn Azib, و Ubay ibn Ka'b, and so on. In short, what can be said is that this assumption cannot be accepted as to be, for example, an event which gave rise to the origin of Shi'ism. Because with regard to so many traditions narrated from the Holy Prophet regarding Imam Ali, especially Hadith al-Qadir, especially this hadith narrated from the Holy Prophet, and it is really a proven hadith, a reliable hadith. Man kuntu mawla fahaza aliyun mawla. Whoever I am his master, Ali is his master. As for mawla, of course, here mawla means master, and no more. Because how can it be accepted that on that burning and hot day, when this ayah was revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya ayyar rasul balligh ma unzila ilayka min rabbik fa in lam taf'al fama ballaghta risalatah wallahu ya'simuka min an-nas. Then the Prophet kept all the caravan, all those who were with him and all those who were behind and all those who were ahead, in order to convey the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if he had not done it, it means that he had not done or performed or carried out his prophetic mission as completely as possible. It was after the Prophet conveyed the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this ayah was revealed. Al-yawm akmaltu lakum dinakum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati wa raditu lakum al-islam dina. One question: who prepared the ground for the event of As-Saqifa? Who? In answer, I can say Umar and Abu Bakr. The Prophet, when he was seriously ill, chose Usama ibn Zayd as the commander of an expedition or Sariyah in order to send him with the army to Syria, to Muta in Syria, where his father, Zayd ibn Harith, was killed while fighting against the Romans. Just before his demise or death, the Prophet chose Usama, who, according to Sahih al-Bukhari, was 17 years old. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam ordered some of the companions to join him, including Abu Bakr and Umar. Why did the Prophet insist that the army of the Usama should be prepared as quickly as possible in order to be sent to Sham or Syria? One of the reasons was in order to keep some of those who had been plotting to be away from Medina. And then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, لَعْنَ اللَّهُ مَنْ تَقَلَّفَ عَنْ جَيْشَ Usama. And the Prophet kept repeating it. لَعْنَ اللَّهُ مَنْ تَقَلَّفَ عَنْ جَيْشَ Usama. Curse of God be upon those who keep away, who turned away from the army of Usama. But Abu Bakr and Umar, this is not what I am saying. This is what al-Bukhari says. They delayed and delayed. فَتَسَاغَلْ. Delayed and delayed and delayed. And when Usama heard about the illness of the Prophet, he came back. The Prophet said, go back to where you were. Hurry up and hurry up. So, This is what they lag behind. They lag behind. When the Prophet died, Umar denied his death. Denied his death. He insisted. He kept saying that the Prophet had not died. Until Abu Bakr came back from Sulh, because Abu Bakr was not available when the Prophet died. Then he said, Ala raslik ya Umar, take it easy. فجلس عمر. فحمد الله أبو بكر وأثنى عليه ثم قال ألا من كان يعبد محمدا فإن محمدا قد مات. Allah, I mean that he who worshipped Muhammad, surely Muhammad has died. وَمَنْ كَانَ يَعْبُدُ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ حَيٌّ لَا يَمُوتُ. And he who worships God, God is all living and does not die. And then he read this ayah from chapter 39, verse 30. إِنَّكَ مَيَّتٌ وَإِنَّهُمْ مَيَّتُونَ. You are dead, you die, and surely they will die. And then he said this ayah, وَمَا مُحَمَّدٌ إِلَّا رَسُولٌ قَدْ خَلَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ الرُّسُلُ أَفَإِنْ مَاتَ أَوْ قُتِلَ انقلبتم على أعقابكم ومن ينقلب على عقبيه فلن يضر الله شيئا وسيجزي الله الشاكرين. Muhammad is only a messenger. فَإِنْ مَاتَ أَوْ قُتِلَ. If he dies or is killed, will you revert or return to your old days? And whoever and if anyone does this, he will never harm Allah in the least, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward the grateful. After this, Umar kept silent and agreed. One question: why did Umar deny the death of the Holy Prophet? Maybe it was a political maneuver or tragedy. But there should be some rationale behind the curtain. Yeah. It was after this that the tragedy of Saqifa started. And there are some traditions and some sources based on which finally Omar killed Sa'd ibn Ubadah. Of course, some believe that he was killed by jinn. But according to a book as available with me called As-Saqifa Inqilabun Abyad. As-Saqifa, a white revolution. This is the title as given by the writer to this. The writer, Najah al-Ta'i. Najah al-Ta'i. Yeah, he killed Sa'd ibn Ubadah, who was one of their rivals. Sa'd ibn Ubadah, the chief of Al-Ansar, because he didn't agree to pay allegiance to Abu Bakr. And at the same time, he left the army. And Umar protested to the Prophet himself why he chose a 17-year-old boy as the commander. This is النص والاجتهاد. This is ijtihad. This is an objection to the Prophet. This is an independent judgment. An independent judgment. This means passing a judgment, a juristic judgment, or whatever you may call it, against the Prophet. Furthermore, let me disclose some of the other truths which are not disclosed by some others. Why? We are not against unity. Based on mutual respect. While being fair and honest. Let's discuss. Let's hold some international dialogues. Televised dialogues. And let's talk. In order to know each other better. In terms of our beliefs. Based on the arguments for and the arguments against. That's all. We are not going to fight. We are not going to quarrel. We are just like to hold some friendly talks based on mutual understanding and respect. While being polite, not rude, without swearing or without using any bad language. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَبَشَّرْ عِبَادَ الَّذِينَ يَسْتَمِعُونَ الْقَوْلَ فَيَتَّبِعُونَ أَحْسَنَهُ. Let's listen carefully. Let's read carefully. Let's be fair. And let's choose the best idea. At least let's be honest with ourselves. At least let's be fair to ourselves. Let me read from Sahih al-Bukhari. When the Prophet was on his deathbed, he said, bring me something so that I might write something based on which you would not go astray. You would not be misled. The people who were present there started arguing with each other. One of them said, the Prophet is talking nonsense. إِنَّهُ لَيَحْجُرُ. What is the source of this? Please let me show to you. إِنَّ النَّبِيَّ اللَّهِ لَيَحْجُرُ. This is one. إن النبي غلبه الوجع وعندكم كتاب الله حسبنا كتاب الله. إن النبي, the Prophet is seriously ill. عندكم, the book of God is with you, among you. حسبنا كتاب الله, the book of God, the Quran is sufficient. Then the Prophet said, قوموا عني لا ينبغي عند النبيين تنازع. Leave. قوموا, get up, rise, and leave me. It is not correct, it is not polite to argue in the presence of the Prophet. Why? Where did the Prophet during his lifetime say the book of God is sufficient? With regard to Hadith al-Saghlain, the two weighty or important or precious things, إني تارك فيكم الثغلين كتاب الله وعترتي وإنهما لن يفترقا حتى يرد علي الحوض. Kitab, Quran, and the Ahlul Bayt. مثل أهل بيتي كمثل سفينة نوح من ركبها نجا ومن تخلف عنها غرق. The Prophet said, the similitude, the likeness of my Prophet is like the similitude of the ark or ship of Noah. Anyone embarking on the ship will be saved. Otherwise, will drown. But Umar said, Hasbuna Kitabullah. The book of God is sufficient. So, all these show that some of the Muhajirin and Ansar, especially the two first caliphs, had in mind what they disclosed after the demise of the Prophet. Not only on this, you might have heard about Sahifatul Mal'una, As-Sahifatul Mal'una. What is As-Sahifatul Mal'una? It might not have been said anywhere, and some people might not have heard about As-Sahifatul Mal'una. The cursed letter. What was the cursed letter? It was a plot. It was a text as prepared for some who were waiting for the death of the Prophet in order to claim caliphate and rulership. They prepared the letter and they signed all and they hid it within the wall of the Kaaba. Al-Majlisi fi Bihar al-Anwar, volume 28, volume 28, page 106, quotes the text, the full text of this letter. As-Sahifatul Mal'una. So, leaving the army of Usama ibn Zayd, while the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, لَعْنَ اللَّهُ مَنْ تَقَلَّفَ عَنْ جَيْشَ Usama. And the Prophet kept saying, جَهِزُوا جَيْشَ Usama. جَهِزُوا, prepare the army of Usama, prepare the army of Usama. But they delayed and lagged behind and behind, by making different excuses, by protesting to the Prophet why he chose a 17-year-old boy. They left the army. When the Prophet wanted to make his last will and testament, they prevented the Prophet and said he was hallucinating. He is talking nonsense. Al-Iyadu billah. Ma yantiqu anil hawa in huwa illa wahyun yuha. The Prophet never said anything out of whim. At the same time, the Prophet is infallible. The Prophet got angry with them and said to him, leave me. Hasbuna Kitabullah. Assassinating Sa'd ibn Ubadah. Engineering different plots and so on. Some might say these are what the Shiites say, and there are no traces of what they say in any of the Sunni sources. No. Either you or those who say this are ignorant, absolutely ignorant of or blind to As-Sahih al-Bukhari or some other sources, or they know but pretend to ignorance. Who is fair? Who is honest? The Shias or the Sunnis? Who? Who is telling the lie? The Shias or the Sunnis? Proof. You should prove to be true. Not just by shouting. Not just by creating hullabaloo. Don't raise a hue and cry. Be honest. Be academic. Talk academically. Talk academically if you can. If can't, please be silent. We should not resort to demagogy. We should not resort to cheating. We should not hide the truth. Let's not bury the truth. Let's uncover the truth. Let's disclose the truth. Both the Shias and the Sunnis are always in urgent need of the Imam. Definitely. I defined al-Imam wal-Imamate. As I had explained before, al-Imama ri'asatun amma fi umur ad-din wa ad-dunya li shakhsin insaniyin niyabatan an ar-Rasul. What we mean by imamate? Of course, caliphate means successorship. Successorship. Caliphate, succeeding to the Prophet. But al-Imama is a comprehensive concept which comprehends both successorship and al-marja'iyya ad-diniyya. This is the main point. If you know the Sunnis consider Imam Ali as the fourth caliph, they should not ignore his religious authority. Umar said, Lawla Ali lahalaka al-Umar. If Ali had not been, Umar would have perished. Most of the time, Umar did not know how to pass a proper or correct judgment. He would resort to Imam Ali. For example, Umar ordered a pregnant woman to be stoned to death. Imam Ali prevented him from doing that. Said, first, the woman who admitted to her adultery should first give birth to the baby, and then the judgment should be passed regarding her. This is an example, of course. Lawla Ali lahalaka al-Umar. الإمامة خلافة الرسول في إقامة الدين وحفظ حوزة الملة بحيث يجب اتباعه على كافة الأمة. على كافة الأمة. Imam, who according to 12 Imam Shi'ism is infallible, is one who established the religion, who preserves the religion in all aspects, in such a manner that all the ummah or religious Muslim community should follow him. Now, with regard to this point, Imam, so those who say Hasbuna Kitabullah, Hasbuna Kitabullah, as Umar said, it means abolishing, annulling the role of the Itra, of the family of the Prophet, with regard to their religious authority. Even those who say حسبنا محبة أهل البيت. Even these people, it means that they content themselves with the Quran. It means that, يغسروا في الأخذ بالقرآن. It means that they ignore accepting the Quran. Just the love of the Ahlul Bayt enough. So what is correct is that the Quran itself is not sufficient. The Quran should be complemented by Ahlul Bayt. They will be together, as the Prophet said, and they will never separate it from each other. So even the Sunnis, the non-Shias also need Ahlul Bayt. And the Prophet always turned the attention of the Ummah to the Ahlul Bayt. So, it is obligatory to accept the religious authority of the Ahlul Bayt. So, the obligation of accepting the religious authority of the Ahlul Bayt is not limited or restricted just to those who accept the A'imma, the Ahlul Bayt, as the Imams, but accepting the religious authority of the Ahlul Bayt comprehends the whole Ummah, all the Muslims. All the Muslims. Why? We should return to the Ahlul Bayt. We should refer to the Ahlul Bayt in order to learn from them the true ma'arif, the true teachings of Islam. So what we insist on is the religious authority of the Ahlul Bayt. The tragic event of As-Saqifa prevented the Muslim Ummah from benefiting from the ma'arif, the true knowledge, the religious knowledge of Ahlul Bayt. So we should cry, even we should shed blood instead of tears, if we reflect deeply on the consequence of aftermath of the event of As-Saqifa. Omar banned temporary marriage, fixed-term marriage. Who is responsible? Who is to blame for the adultery which is committed by a large number of Muslim boys and girls? Sorry for saying this. Imam Ali said, if Umar had not banned temporary marriage, no Muslim, no one would have committed adultery. One question: if a young Muslim boy or girl cannot get married permanently, if a young boy living, for example, in an environment where he has to get married, and on the other hand, he says that he cannot get married temporarily because it was banned, prohibited by Umar. Mut'atul Hajj wa Mut'atul Nisa were both prohibited by Umar. While temporary marriage was practiced during the lifetime of the Prophet, he banned it, he prohibited it. And there are so many other examples. All the disunity which we see now among the Muslims, all the corruption, all many other political and economic problems which we have now. The Muslims ruled over Spain, Andalusia or Andalusia in English, for 500 years. And over southern France and Portugal. Some might know about it. The Alhambra Mosque still exists in Spain. Some of the Muslim monuments still exist in Cordoba, Al-Ghortoba, and Seville or al-Ishbiliyya. One of the scholars said very beautifully, if instead of Umayyad Islam, if Ali Islam, al-Islam al-Alawi, had ruled over Spain, Islam would have existed there until now. Al-Islam al-Umawi ruled over Spain, not al-Islam al-Alawi. I remember when I delivered an English lecture on the conquest of Muslim, on the conquest of Spain by the Muslims. One of the students said, it is for the first time that I learned that the Muslims, some of the Muslims ruled over Spain for 500 years. It is quite unbelievable. And she said, the lecture which you gave is your best lecture which you have ever delivered. The conquest of Spain by the Muslims. But which Islam? Sunni Islam or Shia Islam? Al-Islam Umawi, la al-Islam al-Alawi. So there are so many historic truths which unfortunately had been buried, but they should be unearthed. They should be uncovered. They should be disclosed and revealed to those who are ignorant of the truth, some of the truths. Let's not betray Islam. I am addressing the Muslims. Let's be honest with Islam. Let's be loyal to Islam. We will be all called to account fi yawm al-qiyamah, on the day of resurrection. We will be all held responsible to Allah if we ignore. We should do what we should do. Politely, academically. As much as we are permitted to do. As much as we are permitted to do. As much as. Some people might hide some of the truths for the sake of personal interest or benefits or profits. من جهة الواجب الكفائي or من جهة الواجب العيني. من جهة with regard to الواجب الكفائي. We should do something. All right, if you permit, I would like to stop at this point, inshallah ta'ala. Next week, I will continue my course of lectures, and inshallah I will deal with another assumption or hypothesis regarding the origin of Shiism. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.